Hello everyone, welcome to the Scumdog's Kennel. I'm your host, Chris Williams, and in today's Cryptid Corner mini-episode, I once again have several stories of the bizarre to tell you all about today, folks. Once again, a hyena-like cryptid was seen in the US, and Bigfoot and UFOs were seen simultaneously together. Let's get into the first story, titled Massive Hyena-like Cryptid Seen Chasing Deer in New York's Adirondack Park. In 2010, a husband and wife traveling through the southern Adirondacks of New York reported seeing a massive hyena-like quadruped chasing deer across a road. The animal stopped directly in front of their vehicle, stared at them for several seconds, then disappeared into the wild terrain. Years later, the witnesses remained adamant that this was not a coyote, wolf hybrid, coy dog, or a misidentified local animal. Let's get into the full account now and hear exactly what these witnesses saw and how it affected them, folks. The initial sighting in 2010 in the southern Adirondacks of New York, within Adirondack Park, my wife and I saw what can only be described as a hyena. As a hyena chasing several deer across the road. To the amazement of many people, the Adirondacks are part of America's largest protected wilderness region in the lower 48 states. That is where this happened. The animal literally stopped dead in front of our car and stared back at us for about 10 seconds before it moved off. I have been in the woods my whole life. I was raised with a gun since childhood and spent my summers on Lake Champlain. I have hunted, fished, instructed at archery, and fired at rifle ranges, hiked, coon hunted at night, owned houses, ridden horseback through wilderness areas, and presently live, with all kinds of wildlife on my lakefront creekside property. I thought I'd seen it all, but I have no idea what this animal could be. Or was, other than to say that it looked like a hyena. The animal's appearance. It was very large, approximately 150 to 175 pounds. It had a long, bushy tail and a brindle, wiry, spotted coat that appeared brown, black, and gray. The animal had a powerful predator build, a thick lower jaw, and a rounded, diamond-shaped triangular head. Its rounded ears sat high on the head, and what appeared to be a mane ran down the back, beginning at the neck. Its hind legs were noticeably shorter than the front legs. They also appeared thick and powerfully muscled. The overall body gave the animal a sloped look. I have seen countless hyenas on the Discovery Channel and National Geographic and on Wild Kingdom. When I was a kid, there is no other animal I can compare it to. This strongly resembled a spotted hyena. Now, people have basically been seeing these creatures for the last decade or so, folks, or even longer. And it's very strange and out there, isn't it, folks? But let's continue with, this guy's story. The report to the authorities. I immediately went home and searched for information. Amazingly, I found a references claiming that the so-called mountain hyena once roamed the Adirondacks or Appalachians. Well, I have news. At least one still does. My wife and I called New York Environmental Conservation in Ray Brook when we got home, and we were laughed at. We even received an errant email response that ridiculed my report. It had apparently been accidentally sent to me instead to an Encon co-worker. This made me very angry, especially because I had made friends with the local environmental conservation officer who liked to use my property to catch poachers. There is an animal park at the end of the lake. So I called them as well. They assured me they had never had any spotted hyenas. So, probably not an escaped animal from, this park, folks. Could have been maybe from some animal menagerie, perhaps? Some guy who was keeping it as a pet and it got out? Maybe. Either way, a second sighting. Only shortly after this, I saw the Monster Quest episode describing a similar animal in Maine, the Sanka Wirrakin, often referred to in cryptozoological literature as the dog killer, has also been compared to hyena-like animals. However, the famous mounted Sanka Wirrakin in specimens, seems far too small and pig-like compared to what I saw. Its legs are too scrawny, and it appears far less canine than the animal we encountered. It also has a longer, straighter coat and a thinner snout. Then, a few days later, we saw the same animal again doing the same thing. There's no doubt in my mind this was not a coyote, a wolf hybrid, or a coy dog. This was a hyena. That is what our witnesses says he saw, and I'm not surprised that he was laughed at, folks. Because this is the sort of thing that seems to happen to a lot of people who do see these animals, but can't get any confirmation of what they were or actually are. But let's once again get back to his story. The wildlife background. My property has a creek mouth, and lakefront access with 4 fish spawning sites and plenty of wildlife. We have deer, coyotes, red and gray foxes, fishers, eagles, turkeys, ducks, blue herons, owls, osprey, geese, turkey vultures, the occasional black bear, and this fall, even a yearling moose. I've seen it all, especially while riding horseback. You name it, I have probably seen it and can identify it, but I have never seen anything like this. The closest comparison I can make is a spotted hyena. Ooh, there's also some additional background information, I guess, on this. I've worked for 2 Emmy winners and consider myself very observant. Amazingly, this is the second cryptid animal I've seen in my life. What about the first animal, folks? Is it different from this hyena? The fact that you saw this hyena twice and that you had a previous encounter with something, mysterious, makes me think that you almost, are being drawn to these entities. But there's more to it, folks. When you see something like this, you never forget it. Suddenly you realize the world is far more amazing than many people ever know. Just imagine what may be lurking in the untouched, expanses of Canada and Alaska where few, if any, people have ever ventured. In the spirit of honest disclosure, I also lived in what many people believe to be a UFO hotspot. I have 2 UFO photos taken over my home that have circulated on top ufology sites. In 2009, I was featured on the cover of the world-famous UFO magazine. But none of that changes what my wife and I saw or what many of my neighbors have seen and experienced. So, I guess his other neighbors have also seen this weird phenomena, folks. These cryptids, these UFOs. And much like the story we're about to read, where we have Bigfoot, who was seen in the company of UFOs, folks, that maybe more is going on than anyone can actually really, verify, or even basically, I guess, sometimes even take seriously, because when they hear this sort of thing, folks, people scoff at it, and make fun of these people who've seen it. I think that's a very bad thing, folks. It might be the wrong way to go about any of that. But let's move on to the next story, and we'll discuss these points a little later. Sawano, Wisconsin, Bigfoot and disc UFO encounter. 2 hairy figures vanish after a craft lands near farm. In September 1978, a young witness and his father reportedly observed 2 large hairy humanoids in their garden near Shawana, Wisconsin, not far from the Menominee Indian Reservation. What began as a possible Bigfoot encounter quickly escalated into something far stranger when large disc-shaped craft appeared overhead and one landed in a nearby field. I guess the witnesses had wondered ever since whether the creatures and the UFOs were connected. Let's read the full account now. My name is Donald, and this happened when I was a boy. In September 1978, I was living with my father on a farm near Shawana, Wisconsin, very close to the Menominee Indian Reservation. Around that time, there had already been some talk in the community about an unknown large hairy creature that 2 deer hunters had seen not far from our farm. I had heard stories from the Menominee about the Manamok Walk, or the giants, but I always considered those accounts to be legends. I never expected them to be true. Or, in his own words, expected anything like that to cross into my own life. Let's hear his full account now. The initial sighting. One evening, my father and I were coming home from the store when we noticed what looked like 2 hairy creatures in our garden. They appeared to be collecting squash. Each creature was at least 6 feet tall. It was dusk, but there was still enough light for us to see clearly what they were doing. My father immediately cut the headlights and stopped the car. We just sat there, stunned, watching these creatures pick and eat squash from the garden. They did not seem to notice us, even though we were only about 100 feet away. Then his appearance. After 5 minutes, one of the creatures looked in our direction. When it did, I could see its eyes glow red in the moonlight. That frightened us. We decided to head... We decided to head back because we needed to make a dash for the house and call the police. In their own words, folks, I imagine that they did want that, to happen. Because, if they didn't, they probably were worried these entities would attack them, even though they were paying no attention to them. But now let's move on. The disc-shaped objects. Before we could move, huge disc-shaped objects suddenly appeared above us. They slowly moved toward the east field, which was about 200 yards from us, and one of them landed. I estimate that the craft was about 30 feet in diameter. A large sliding door opened almost immediately, and a foggy green light glowed from inside the craft. After a few seconds, the door closed. The craft slowly rose in the air, then shot off toward the north. When we looked back toward the garden, the creatures were gone. Yeah, it almost sounds like it was a distraction, folks. And I have no doubt that most people would be distracted from something like seeing Bigfoot by a, UFO landing nearby, opening its door, and a weird green light emitted from the doorway, folks. But we'll discuss this point after we read the rest of this witness's story. The neighbor's account. A few days later, our neighbors from down the road came over for dinner. After we finished eating, my father and Mr. C walked outside and talked for about an hour. Later, after the neighbors left, I was cleaning up the kitchen. That evening, I was watching television in the living room when my father walked in, turned off the TV, and sat down beside me. He told me that Mr. C and his sister had witnessed one of the crafts on the same night as our encounter. They also had seen several of the large hairy creatures meandering in the nearby woods. Mr. C said he knew something had been in those woods for several weeks, but he never got a good look at it until after the craft arrived. After that night, we never had another encounter. We also never heard of any more sightings from people in the area. Well, it could be that maybe this was the one and only sighting, folks, but I have my doubts. I would imagine that this area might be rife with such encounters, folks, but sometimes people only have one encounter in their lives with something weird. Not like the previous account with the witness basically encountering UFOs, then seeing that hyena-like cryptid, folks. So that could basically, really tell you what goes on in the woods. That maybe one time you have one encounter. Some people, though, have several. But let's continue with the article now. The question that remains, do you think that these creatures were Bigfoot, aliens, or the same thing? It has always seemed strange to me that a Bigfoot body has never been found. Is it possible that Bigfoot is an extraterrestrial being? Thanks, Donald. Now, Donald here, he might be right on the money, at least to some degree. I believe that Bigfoot already exists on Earth, folks, but I could believe that maybe members of its race have been uplifted by alien beings, maybe used as some sort of labor force, perhaps. They take this, sturdy organism, that would be what a Bigfoot is, folks, uplift it, perhaps maybe increase its intelligence, and then use it as basically some sort of, servant or, worker, folks. This, along with the gray aliens that some people have basically speculated could basically be some sort of drones or basically artificial beings, folks, then I could basically see that Bigfoot and these small gray beings would be the workforce of some other alien race that uses them, to basically do their bidding. They can use the gray aliens as, scientific, experimenters and basically workers in basically various labs and facilities. And they can use the Bigfoots as, either guards, soldiers, or even maybe, as scouts when they send them down to Earth. But as I said, folks, I think they might be some sort of uplifted race. They're basically animals, but they've been altered basically to serve a purpose. That's just my idea here, folks. Now, with the first encounter with the hyena and our witness, what is strange about that, folks, is that the man who witnessed this hyena, along with his wife, they had previously seen UFOs and other phenomena. As I said, folks, it's been noted that basically people who see UFOs often see ghosts or even other cryptids, like Bigfoot. But the fact that he came across one of the rare instances of people seeing these hyena-like entities, it beggars the question that maybe somehow, after he saw those UFOs over his property, folks, and took those photos, that it somehow magnetized him or, radiated him. So he was different after that point, folks, and he could see these, weird phenomena like the hyenas. I would not be surprised if he has an encounter with Bigfoot or ghosts later on in his life, folks, if he ever basically, entered a haunted house or went to an area where, people have seen Bigfoot. It could possibly be the truth. Either way, both stories are certainly out there and makes you wonder what the actual truth of the matter is. Is it just basically something that happens to people who basically are somehow, drawn to it? Or is this, like with the second account, you only have one encounter with UFOs, and for whatever reason, other people have more. Either way, we're at the end, so please go subscribe to my YouTube channel, Read Comics That Are Bad For You. You can use the YouTube link down below in the descriptions, or the chat to go subscribe me. Hit that like button for me. Make sure you're still subscribed. Leave some comments down below. Hit that bell for notifications. Make sure you hit the part of the bell that'll give you all future notifications, and please share this video out. I'm Chris Williams from the Scumdogs Kennel. Thank you all for joining me. I'll be back again tomorrow with another great video, so be sure to come back again then. Until next time, folks, I'll see you all again soon.